All right, so it looks like we are live now on Zoom and Facebook. I want to thank everyone that is joining us this evening. And on Zoom, you can go ahead and ask questions throughout this presentation in the chat. On Facebook, you can go ahead and ask questions in the comment box. I'm Maggie Kelly, the Communications Director for the Estacada School District, joined by Principal Amy Hudson and Athletic Director Andy Ma. I'm going to turn it over to Athletic Director Ma in just a moment, and he's going to go over some information about fall sports that I know all of you are here to learn about. And then at the end, we'll be taking your questions. So again, go ahead and put those questions that you might have in the chat, and we will get to those at the end. So Andy, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Maggie. And thank everyone tonight for joining me in this informational webinar. It's been an interesting year for sure. Obviously, this would have typically happened back in August when we would have been starting our sports and things, and we all would have been crammed into the gym. But that's obviously not the case right now. So I wanted to get out some information to all of our parents and all of our kids just about our upcoming sports seasons, which actually started yesterday, which is really exciting. It's been kind of a crazy year with a lot of uncertainty related to our sports. And so I'm really fired up and excited to be able to give this information to you and see our kids back on our fields and courts and getting going with athletics. And I'd like to thank all of our high school staff and district staff in the fact that we were able to get some things going when we were not allowed to play sports, and we were able to get some practices and some training and stuff to get our kids ready for this upcoming season. And I want to thank all you parents for letting our kids join in those activities and getting them going and getting them out of the house and getting them active in those early season programs that we took place. So I want to thank you for that. Tonight's meeting is basically to focus on kind of just what's the expectations, what are some things this year with athletics. Some of it will be some review, and some things, if you're a veteran parent that's had a student in the district for a while, you'll probably know a lot of this information. But again, a lot of you, some of this new information will be brand new, especially with some of the COVID stuff that we need to follow, and some of the stuff we're going to be doing here as we head into our seasons. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone. As Maggie said, as questions pop up as I go through my little PowerPoint and I start talking about things, please feel free to fire away in the chat. And then at the end, we'll kind of wrap it up and answer any questions you may have. And obviously, after the night's over, if you think of anything, my contact info and everything is on here as well. So feel free to reach out if there are other questions as well. So I'm going to try to share my screen right now, and we'll get started. All right. So Estacada Athletics, just to give you guys some contact information. First off, if you need to get a hold of me or Athletic Secretary Tara Emerson, here's my email. Here's Tara's email. You can also call the school if you have questions as we head into our seasons. If you have questions about anything related to sports and athletics, fire away and let us know what's going on. We'll be happy to assist you and get you going. So I'll leave that there for just another couple seconds if you need to jot that down. You can also find these on our district website if you need to get in contact with us, or call the main line at the high school if you have questions about athletics or sports or signups or any of that kind of thing as we go. Here is our high school athletics website. It's a great resource for you to find some of our information. How do you sign up? What do the schedules look like? Which sports are offered, all of those things are located at our school website. I also, highly encourage you throughout the season. I always get parents asking, what's the best way to keep up with athletics at Estacada High School? And to be honest with you, the OSAA site is an awesome site to keep track of schedules, games, scores, times of games, locations. When other schools were playing or updating or putting, scores or schedules and things in, the most up-to-date recent information flows right through the OSAA website. So you can find league standings, you can find updated scores, rosters, team pictures, stuff like that. So OSAA is where I tell people most of the time to go if they're looking for information about our teams and our programs. We also have links that go right to the OSAA site from our seasonal sports that are located on our website. So what's being offered this year? Obviously, things are a little bit different. Typically in August and September, we'd be playing football and playing our fall sports. Obviously, everything has been pushed back, and so it's going to look a little bit different this year. As I mentioned earlier, February 22nd, which was yesterday, our fall sports officially started. So a little bit different. It was a very wet and cold day out there, a little different than 90-degree August heat that most of our fall teams are prepared for and used to every single year. But we are offering football, volleyball, boys and girls soccer, cross country, cheer, and dance. And very exciting for our district. I'll be honest with you. There's unfortunately some schools in our state that aren't allowed to play tackle football right now and not allowed to even have a volleyball contest indoors due to some metrics and things. And excitingly, Estacada School District is able to offer all of these sports for our kids. And so our practices started on Monday. And we just finished up night 2 of practices for all of our fall sports. Our competitions will begin next week, starting with a soccer game that starts on Tuesday. So exciting stuff, soccer, volleyball, football game next Friday. So lots of stuff coming here soon. As far as sports are concerned, and we'll talk about signups and how you can sign up later, but it's never too late to get signed up, especially this year. I know a lot of kids, it's hard without kids in the building. Sometimes they recruit and get kids out for sport, especially our freshmen. But I do encourage you, it's not too late to turn out for any of these sports. Our coaches are excited and we'll take anybody and excited to have them out. This season will run through April 10th. It's about a 5-week season consisting of only league contests, which will finish with a accumulating week, which I will talk more about later. One thing to put on the radar, I know a lot of our coaches have talked about this, but our fall sports will run through spring break. So we have practices and contests set for spring break at this time. So please keep that in mind and make sure you're communicating with your coach, with things going on. I know people take vacation and things, but with such a tight season this year, there's a lot of contests we got to fit in and get going during spring break time. A little change up in the schedule. As soon as fall is over, we're actually jumping to spring sports. So with spring sports being outside, they shift them around a little bit. This is actually typically the time of year that spring sports participate anyways. So it will be, not a huge change. It's typically April and May. These programs, baseball, softball, track, and tennis are all playing as well. There is a little bit of overlap in the schedules. And so you will notice that, hey, fall was supposed to go till, April 10th. April 5th is practice. So there is some overlap for you to be aware of. But one thing that I will tell you is that going into season 2 and also season 3, there are no practice limitations as there is for fall. So fall right now, all of our sports, the kids need to have 5 practices. Football needs to have 9 practices in order to be eligible for a contest. As we roll into spring season and also into winter season, you can actually jump right into competition if you've played the previous sport. So there is no practice limitations. That's something just to be aware of. But again, April 5th to May 22nd for all of our spring sports, if you're interested in those. And all the signups are open right now. So you can actually go sign up right now for any of these sports that are listed on here for today through our Family ID program. This is probably the biggest change here is our winter sports, which are indoors, which will actually be in May and June. Which is definitely a big change up from typical years. You can also notice that season runs later into June. So that's our wrestling, boys and girls basketball. So that kind of gives you a little outline of our schedule. You can reference OSAA as well, as they have schedules on there, and they talk about their calendar and find some more dates and things. But that's kind of how our season's set up right now. Our Tri-Valley Conference, like I mentioned before, with a modified season, right now, we're looking at 5-week seasons, which actually sets up well for all of our team sports in the fact that, for example, like boys and girls soccer, volleyball, they're basically playing the league schedule twice over. Baseball and softball will play the league schedule 3 times. And so it's basically like league contests. We're not really playing non-league competition except for potential accumulating weeks. So most of our schedule will be just set up with our local league schools in the Tri-Valley. So if you want to sign up or you're interested in getting kids signed up or your student athlete wants to get involved in sports, you can register through Family ID. We have a link right on our website. It's our virtual platform where we basically do all of our paperwork via online portal. And so if you need help with that or you have questions about how to do that, I'm happy to share the link with you. It is on our website where you can use it and get in there. The nice thing is if you register at one time, it's good for your students' whole high school career. So, and same for other sports. So if they played football this fall and they're signed up, you need to just go back in, click and sign them into winter, but your information should stay current for that. Have a current physical on file. Physicals are good for 2 years from the date that they are done. So they last for 2 years. Complete the COVID waiver and liability form. That's also done. Coaches have those, and anybody that's been doing a practice session or a training session earlier this year, they've already done those waivers. So if you filled it out once, you are good to go, but it's something that you must have done. I put monitor all signs and symptoms of COVID. This is a big one this year because when kids come to practice each day, coaches are taking roll and coaches are screening kids for COVID. And what I mean by that is they're just basically asking them if they've been in contact with anybody with COVID, do they have a fever, they showing any signs of symptoms. And so kids have to answer those questions each day to make sure that they are not showing any signs or symptoms. The big thing about this is that we're asking all programs and all kids, similar to school, that if they are showing any signs or symptoms, to please not come to practice. And I know that's a tough thing. In the past, it may have been something, kid had the sniffles or kids, has a cold or something like that, and it's like I want to play, I got to get to practice. But this year it's really important that we're following this. Our coaches are definitely on board with this as well. They understand the situation. There's not going to be repercussions for this, for missing practice and things, because we know this is part of the protocol. We don't want to run the risk of somebody coming and being sick and getting the whole team sick, and now our whole program is out for an extended time. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute as well. And then lastly, have previously passed all 5 classes from the previous semester and be enrolled in 5 current classes in this semester as well. Fees, exciting news here on the fees. All fees have been waived this year. Awesome. Congrats to our district. That is so cool that we did this. So I'm so excited about this. And I think it's great that we were able to do this for our kids and for our families. So this is awesome news. So, even more reason to get out on the fields and courts this year and participate. Academic standards. This is, straight policy OSAA. We talked about having passed 5 classes, and we also have to be on track to graduate. So heading into the beginning of their year, obviously we're mid-semester right now. So these credits aren't as important or aren't looking as much, but as we head into, say, next year, this will be very important, especially for students that may have struggled in first semester or this semester. Okay, so if I'm a sophomore heading into my sophomore year, if I may have struggled, during a semester, I need to make sure I have 4.5 credits heading into my sophomore year. Okay, so that's something parents that I would definitely make sure that you're keeping track of, or where your students is kind of finishing up the year at, because summer school may be a very real option that you need to explore. Especially if your students are planning on playing athletics, the following year. Ineligible athletes. This has been a big question that's been coming up quite a bit, as we've had a lot of students that have been struggling, with academics here in the first semester. One thing that I've told all my coaches and our district has said is that kids are still allowed to join teams and sign up and practice. I think it's a great thing for them to be involved. I don't want to turn kids away if they have struggled. But hey, we still have to follow the OSAA's regulations, meaning that those students will not be able to participate in competition. Okay, so kids can still come out and practice, be a part of the team, everything. If they haven't passed their 5 classes, they just cannot participate in competitions, with that team. Incomplete grades. I was checking the other day. Our teachers, put incompletes in the grade books for some kids that were close to passing or getting things done. We still have quite a few kids that are hoping to be eligible to play fall sports right now that have incompletes sitting on their transcript. And until those are made up into passing grades, and there's 5, they will not be eligible to participate in competitions as well. Lots of questions about the hardships. Hey, this is a very case-by-case situation. Typically, these are saved for special circumstances, with certain things that have happened that have caused an academic hardship for students that can be petitioned to the OSAA. Like I said, these can be discussed, coaches, or if you have a special circumstance you feel, or something like that, this is something that can be explored. But at the same time, it's not for everybody. And there needs to be, some criteria in there for that. So I'd be happy to explore any situations, or talk with people about this. But again, it's not just a blanket thing just because a student, for example, didn't pass all their classes that they're just going to be granted this hardship. We need to have some second semester plans in place, some summer school, plans in place. And like I said, it's a kind of a case by case situation. Some parent communication stuff. Obviously, it's a weird year because as of right now, we haven't had a lot of interaction. Our coaches haven't got to potentially know a lot of our parents like we would normally have parent meetings and things. So it's probably been a lot of virtual stuff. But hopefully your coaches are still communicating with you and getting some information out there about what are some of our expectations, team rules, requirements. I'll be honest with you. I coach football. And the season has just snuck up, and it's been here really, really quick. And so I would expect here in the next few, in this next week or so, make sure you're staying in contact with coaches and being in good communication. One thing I definitely want is I want parents to be on a Remind or be them on Parent Square or whatever a coach is using, SnapRaise, it doesn't matter, or Snapchat, whatever it is, to be able to get information about practices and things, especially without being able to meet with you in person. But what are your communication norms? If you have a question, you absolutely should, reach out to the coach. If it's especially if it's about schedules, anything. But obviously, I say first here a non-threatening manner. Obviously, there's a big difference between a lot of times what the kids bringing home and telling parents and what's actually happening at practice and things. So, the first thing would be just for clarification or just to check in, especially if it's about schedules or buses or like any of that kind of stuff. Practice times, absolutely. Gear, equipment, absolutely. Reach out to the coach. They're more than happy to help and facilitate and get to know things. But if you have a question about some other things, which I'll talk about here in a second, there's a better way and a good way to go about it. We do have the 24-hour rule at Estacada High School. And what that means is basically, let's say I finish my varsity football game, it's 9:30 at night, we take the field and, a parent's upset about playing time or something from a student, we have a 24-hour rule. Do not go talk to that coach that night. The 24-hour rule basically states like, hey, you might be really upset, but hold where you're at. Think about your situation. Think about everybody's emotions are high. A lot of times it could be a win or a loss, or maybe it's playing time, like I said, anything. But just wait it out, give it 24 hours, let it sink in. If you're still upset or something's still going on, then absolutely. Then from there, if you want to send an email or, set something up, totally do it. But I found a lot of times that if you wait just 24 hours, things kind of settle down and get back to normal. So what are some appropriate things to discuss, with a coach? Treatment of child mentally and physically, absolutely. That's a big one. Hey, how can I help my child improve, or get better? How about child's behavior, conflict in schedules? Okay, how can I help the program? Right? These are all non-threatening, questioning, good things to talk to a coach about. Here's some things not to talk to a coach about: playing time, team strategy, play calling, other student athletes on the team, right? I like to, and I know we have some very, very high quality coaches at Estacada High School, right? And they're in that position because they are. And so I trust them as the athletic director, and I hope you do too as a parent, to make the best decisions when it comes to these 4 things about our kids. And they really do. If I say this, but it's a shortened season this year, but being a coach, I spend more time with your kids than you do probably, and more time than I do with my own kids, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, I hope you trust me that I'm trying to do the best that I can for them. Because with the time I spend with them, I get to know them, and every coach on every team wants what's best for that kid. And I hope you guys get that too, with that. And obviously, if a parent or other players come to talk to you about these items, and say, hey, what do you think about, just don't entertain that talk. I hope that we can all support each other, and really get our program strong, especially in such a crazy year. Typical protocol, just to quickly go through this. I highly encourage you always, if there's an issue or, a kid's upset about playing time or, what position he's playing or something like that, like, absolutely, please have the kid talk to the coach. I don't know how many times that solves the problem 80, 90% of the time. Okay, kid's upset about playing time, comes home, tells moms and dad, or something like that. Or maybe he's not even upset, right? Hey, and mom and dad just jump in and are like, hey, Billy's not playing enough. Well, maybe he's okay with that, so it's a good thing to always have the player talk to the coach, advocate for your student. I mean, our coaches are accepting, they'll talk with your players, they're happy to do that. If we feel like that's still not gotten anywhere, then absolutely let's have the player, let's have the parent, hey, let's have the kids sit down, and have a conversation about it. Then if we still have an issue, then bring me into the situation. Okay. And then if we still can't figure it out, we bring in the principal, we bring in the superintendent. But I'm telling you what, I don't know, more often than not, 1 and 2 can solve this problem super fast. I don't know how many times over the year I've seen, a simple situation start right here with superintendent, principal, we get a whole CC of emails of, something like that. And, we could have solved that problem really quickly, right? Right. We don't need to jump the gun all the way to 5 or 4 when this could be solved with 1 or 2. Right. And if we need to go all the way to the bottom, then we will. But at the same time, let's do it the right way, and let's make sure we take care of it the right way. Okay. Great one. Quote down there. I just hear that one all the time. But hey, I don't want my kid to know I'm talking to you. Okay, but here's where I'm at. So let's make sure that we're taking care of business with all this stuff. And absolutely, as athletic director, I want to support you guys. Okay? And I know you want what's best for your kids. In the end of the day, that's all you want, right? And I know that. And so I want to help you do that, and we'll make a plan and make it happen. All right, some interesting new stuff for this year. We've gone over our basic protocols. This is one of the biggies. And I'll be honest with you, with some of this stuff coming up here in the next few slides, I want you to really remember before you might say, well, that's ridiculous, or this, we have to kind of take what we think out of this kind of stuff and realize like this stuff is happening so that we can play sports, right? Okay, so I told my coaches that the other day. We were going through a little talk, and we were like, okay, wait, the football team's got to wear a mask and then a mouthpiece and then a helmet and just all these step-by-step procedures. And like my coaches and I were just looking at each other like, you know what? Like we would do anything, okay, to just get our 4 seniors on the field this year, okay, and the rest of our kids on the field. It doesn't matter, yeah, some of it might be a burden, but like at the same time, we kind of got in by the hair of our teeth on almost all of our sports, to be honest with you. It was very touch and go there if you were following kind of how things were going with our counties and stuff on whether we were even going to get a play. And so we've been given the green light now. And so I really want to have everybody's support to say like, we could do whatever we want. Now, we're going to do whatever we can, and we're going to within the rules. But at the same time, we got to be happy with what we got because we're getting an opportunity to do it. So this is a big one, though. Obviously, we got to have masks all the time. Players, coaches, officials, spectators, no exceptions. So everyone's got to have a mask on at all times. I just ask you, if we get the opportunity to have spectators and things like that, you just come in and you do it for us and do it for the kids and think about it. So, I mean, maybe you don't like it, but at the same time, think about those kids on the court, think about the officials, think about everybody else, and just know you're doing it so our kids can play sports. Safety protocols for athletics. We already talked about having the COVID waiver and liability. Again, they need to have that for any sports that they're going to be playing. They need to be wearing a mask. Lots of questions. I don't know, there'll probably be some in there. I'll just throw something quick about the masks. It just needs to be a face covering at this time. I know a lot of our programs have started buying some things. I just purchased some for football. I know our soccer team purchased some team ones. I would assume most of our programs are going to try to get something that, we can issue to the kids for wearing of the masks. But that could be a topic, but it basically just has to cover the mouth and nose, for practices, for games, etc. Cleaning, disinfecting. Our custodial staff's doing a great job cleaning and disinfecting our facilities. Our coaches are doing the same for our equipment that we have in our school. So we're trying to do a great job about that. Contact tracing and symptom monitor. Like I said, every day we're taking roll. Anybody that's, has a fever or anybody that's had contact with COVID, right? We're sending those kids home. And that way, if somebody happens to come down with COVID, we're able to basically get the information out and know who's been in contact with them and things. We also have rapid testing now. We have that in our school for our school-wide kids that are in school. We also have that for athletics. So if a kid was to show up at a practice and be symptomatic and showing signs, we could actually test them for COVID. And so if they were to be positive, then obviously we would send them home, et cetera. So that's kind of a new thing. And that was something that we had to do, especially to opt in to play tackle football. But it is available for all of our sports to be able to be rapid tested if we do have a situation where a kid is showing signs and symptoms that we could be testing. Now, something to think about with that, at no time will we have anyone that's off campus or at home coming down to campus to be tested if they think they do have COVID or something. This is just set aside for if students are at practice showing symptoms and signs, we need to be able to do that. Another rule change this year, we have our seasons and they're pretty tightly matched up. I did want to share with you that the rule of two has changed. Typically the 4A classification has honored the rule of two and had that as an OSAA rule, where basically out of season sports, so let's say for example we're in fall right now, for example baseball could not have more than 2 kids with a coach practicing at a time, and that was to kind of keep the amount of teams and the crossover sports and things were happening. With all the craziness this year, the OSA has lifted the rule of two. So you may be hearing about some of our other programs training during our actual seasons. I'll give you an example. I know, for example, right now, I know baseball and softball, I believe twice a week are doing some hitting time in the hitting facility with some kids that want to get some batting practice and things in. So that's something to be aware of as well, that, even if your athlete, for example, isn't a fall sport athlete or a winter sport or a spring sport, there may be some other things going on with other programs. However, we have talked to our coaches, and with us being such a small school, we do not want kids doubling up per se for cohorting, and also for the fact of that we don't want kids getting burnt out, and going to a football practice, they'll say 6 o'clock at night, and then turning around and going and hitting for 2 hours in the hitting facility, right? So the one exception to that is that we have opened up the weekends, because we feel that's kids' free time. If they want to go practice and work on something else, they can do that. But this rule basically opens up the gates for anybody who's says wants to get some outside work in if they're not in season. So like I said, some of our programs, and you're welcome to check in with me about that if you haven't heard anything from any of your programs, if they're doing some off-season stuff to kind of train and prepare for their next season. So that's the rule of two there. The big one. So can I attend games, right? This is probably why you're all here tonight, right? Hey, when am I going to go, right? So I will tell you this, okay? There are a couple of things I do know, okay? Number one, okay, we will not be allowed to attend away games, all right? So that is something, our numbers and the amount of people that are going to be allowed to be in the stands, if they are allowed in the stands, is going to be a small number. And just for COVID-19 protocols and the fact of other teams managing away fans, we will not be traveling to any away fans. And so that goes for the entire Tri-Valley League. So for example, if we are playing soccer at Madras, we will not be no one should be going to Madras because they won't be allowed in the game. So there's really no point to travel to the games, right? And so that keeps things on the lowdown. So nobody's going to be coming here from any other schools in the Tri-Valley League, and that helps with our management as well. Okay, that's the bad news. The good news is, okay, we are getting some better news. I actually heard that we did move to yellow today, so we moved from a high risk to a moderate risk. And as we keep dropping in our county risk assessment and with our levels, the more people we potentially will be able to bring back into the stadiums, okay, and into the courts. Inside sports are a little tougher just because they are indoors, so the numbers are different. But basically, long story short, the answer is yes. At this point, with where the metrics are, we will be allowing some fans to come and attend. So what does that look like? To be honest with you, we haven't dialed that in, but I will tell you that we will be having priority to players on the team, and their families that will get priority to come back in. Our numbers are still not very high. So don't think, I don't imagine a situation, or there probably will never be a situation this season where we're back to the old times where you can have as many people as we want. And along with that, we'll have some very strict guidelines about how many people we can have, where we can sit, we'll be wearing masks, etc. And so that is good news though, with our metrics moving down and our risk assessment moving down, is that yes, that is on the horizon, that at home games, we will be able to have some fans. I can't guarantee who it will be and how many people it will be at this point. That's some logistical things we need to figure out as our county keeps moving down with that. The good news is we are planning to live stream all of our games and also have games on the radio. So we'll be able to stream all of our volleyball and all of our soccer and football games so that you can watch them on either YouTube or also potentially Facebook Live. So if you are unable to attend, we'll be that. I will tell you also, most of our league is getting set up with this. I think there's a couple schools that may not. So I don't want to say that everybody's got the stuff, but when Estacada High School has a game, we will have it at least on the radio, and we will definitely have it viewing online as well, where you can watch it if you're not able to get into the stands. Last couple slides here. Yes, we are still providing transportation by the district. We'll be allowing one student per seat and have transportation to and from events. So again, we've always done that anyways, but yeah, we will have buses and we will be able to take kids to and from events. With us not having away spectators, parents need to have, pre-communication to take kids home. Typically, parents would just come up after the game, sign the sheet, check out Billy and take him home with them. I think at this point with the situation and us not having away fans, we're planning on everybody to ride and everybody to come back. But if there's a special circumstance, where somebody's in town or you're going to take off for a vacation, we just need to know ahead of time, just so our transportation department can plan for that as we head in before the games. Like I mentioned, we have a 5-week season that we're typically playing with our thing. I'm actually on a committee right now where we're working on some playoff stuff right now, to where we may have some accumulating events for our potential league champions to play. And so that 6th week of competition, next week would be the first week. The 6th week of competition could be a potential playoff matchup for some of our top league teams, and the other teams not potentially in the top couple spots would be able to just match up and find another opponent for another game for their schedule. So that's kind of still in the works. But again, we're trying to get some things going with this too. Awesome. Well, covered a lot of stuff there. I know I was talking fast. Hopefully you got some good information. And I guess we could open up for questions.
All right, thank you. That was a lot of great information, and we got some great questions as well. I think you answered a lot of the questions in the comments, so for the sake of time, I'm only going to go over the questions that haven't been answered. One of them is, are we going to be streaming junior varsity and varsity games?
So here's what I can tell you about that. The plan is yes. Right now we're set up to do it in the gym, so our volleyball for sure. And I think we're going to be able to make it happen for soccer as well, and football too. So the plan is anything that Estacada High School is going to put on right now is that we are planning to do that. Obviously, our varsity is going to be the first thing we want to make sure we have going, but we want to definitely be able to get JV and everybody, on the board so everybody can watch and see their kids play.
Great. Our next question is, you mentioned rapid testing. Would that only occur with parent consent, or what does that look like?
So that's a good question. So with our COVID waiver, and being able to test, it's one of the things that if kids are on campus, my understanding is, and I may have to double check into that because we've kind of just rolled it out. But I'm not sure the exact logistics. That's a very good question with that. But I know if a kid is showing symptomatic signs, the other option would be, if they don't want to test, would be just to go home and in quarantine basically. But the test could basically show, hey, I don't have it, and at that point they could basically, be cleared to go. So I'll look into that a little bit more. That's a very good question. But I think it's a great tool for us to have on campus for any kids that may be showing signs.
And I can answer a little bit. I know for the academic school day, at least, we do have our COVID-19 consent form that parents, we sent out on Monday that parents can either fill out or not, and that we will make an attempt to call a parent, even if we have that consent on file beforehand, just to let them know, here's what symptoms your student is having. Are you still okay with this? And that we might need you to come pick your student up. And then again, we're just going to be really relying on our families to screen their students proactively to try and limit as many students coming to practice or games that are exhibiting symptoms. All right, and our next question is, what days of the week are volleyball practice?
So every day of the week, this week will be practice. Right now they're going 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the main gym. And then starting next week, our games are typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
All right, great. Our next question was, can parents stand outside of the fence to watch the game if it is an away game or if they aren't allowed to be in the stands?
That's a great question. I don't think we're going to be patrolling anything. Obviously, if it becomes a problem and people are climbing the fence or, having issues with that or something like that, and it becomes a distraction. But at the same time, I know even over at Sandy, for example, they were playing soccer and parents were, happened to park along the way down there by River Mill and things. And as long as they were in their cars, it wasn't a bother, it wasn't an issue. So I think it's something where, as long as it's not a problem and they're not actually on site, that's the biggest thing. Because, like I said, we really don't want to push the envelope on anything when we are going to be so tightly limited on our capacity to even have a few fans on the board and be in some of our competitions. So, I definitely don't want to push anything on the edge of that. So.
All right, thank you. Our next question from Zoom is, will we be playing North Marion and Madras for volleyball due to some counties being in the extreme category?
That's a great question. Yeah, we are still waiting to see, and I don't know if they updated today or not, but that was a very valid concern by North Marion and Jefferson County for Madras because they were still in the extreme. So yeah, we're waiting to hear from them. I know North Marion felt like they were going to be, he was pretty confident they were going to move, but I know Madras was a little concerned that they may not as well. So if the case did come where they're unable to play, we would just find more new matchups, and schedule some new games in there. I'm hoping we can keep our league schedule and play them. And I'm hoping those kids get a play from those schools. But if it came down to that situation, we would definitely just find some other games and some matchups to get our girls some games.
Thank you.
I'll jump in real fast. From what I saw, Jefferson was dropping down a level.
Oh,
so,
great.
Good news.
That is great news, and we just hope that our county and other counties will continue to move downward, and that will give us more opportunities. Our next question is a pretty thoughtful one. For cross country, what does it look like for spectators, because all of their meets are technically away?
Yeah, great question. I actually had a conversation today with our cross country coach, and so we would still be in the limitation, potentially of an outdoor venue, which would put us at about 150 people. And so we would just need to be creative with our stands and where our placement of our fans were. And I think the biggest thing is as long as we can keep separation between them and our athletes. I know that we are planning to host a cross country meet on our campus. Unfortunately, right now, McIver Park, where we typically would host 2 of our home meets, is not able to be used. And so we are exploring options of where else we can be, for our competitions. And really, it's kind of up to, it'd be up to wherever those host schools would be, and where those venues are, because typically they're not held on a school campus or in a school stadium. So it could be there could be potentially fans allowed depending on where that location may be for cross country, especially with it being outdoors.
All right, thank you. Our next question is, what is the timeline, and you might not have the answer to this yet, but what is the timeline for knowing if spectators will be allowed in? Do you think it will be prior to the start of home events?
Yes, yeah, 100%. We've already started conversations about this. There's just a lot of logistical stuff to figure out, but I will tell you, things are looking promising right now. And once we get that figured out, like I said, we plan to, get the word spread. And like I said, right now, the priority would be given to, players and getting their families hopefully in the gate first and being able to come watch them compete. So yeah, I would expect here by the end of the week or early next week. Obviously, we have soccer and volleyball next week at home. So.
All right, our next question is, will there be any kind of state or district competitions for sports such as cross country and track?
Yeah, so right now, cross country, we're planning to run districts. We haven't figured the location as we were typically going to plan and do that at McIver Park. But yeah, right now there's part of this 4A committee I'm on. They're still planning to do state at Lane Community College, to my understanding, on April 10th. So that's good news. I'm not sure the logistics of how they do it just because of the numbers of kids and things. But yes, they are still planning. Track is a whole nother thing. I'm not sure. I think with us dropping, I think that bodes well as also. So I would imagine something's going to be set up for track as well. So I think the outdoor sports, track and cross country and things like that, they're going to be able to make some things happen with being able to do some state events and things with those.
Great. Our next question was, when do game schedules come out?
So you can actually log on right now to OSAA and you can go to, if you go to the top and you have activities, you can click on our, all of our fall sports are entered right now. So you can find our football schedule, our soccer schedules, our volleyball schedules. They're all locked into OSAA right now, to give you the schedules and things. And like I said, that's the best place if things get canceled or moved or any of that kind of stuff, to where you can find our sports schedules.
Awesome. Our next question was, for baseball and softball, are we going to stack games for streaming abilities throughout the entire league?
We're going to stack games. Are they talking about like softball and baseball being at the same site? Right now, maybe I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. Right now we're going to be split. So we're going to be, baseball is going to be home, softball will be away as of right now, just to split the venue. I also, one of the big reasons for that is transportation. Right now it's tough to take, we can only take a few buses out at a time just based on our capacity limits. So right now the league is set to play, softball and baseball at opposite sites on the same day. I hope that answered it. If not, throw another one in there.
Okay. And our next question was, if we are limited on the number of spectators, how are we going to decide the cutoff for who is allowed to make it in the stadium? Is it just immediate family? And you might not have that answer to that question yet as well.
Yeah, that's a tough question. That's still something we're working on right now. I mean, obviously, like I said, family is going to be priority to get into the stadium. But, our hands are going to be tied at a certain amount. And, within that number, we have to include, our officials and our scorekeepers and all of those people. But we'll do whatever we possibly can to hopefully get our families in there to see the kids play.
All right, it looks like we're running low on questions at this time. I want to thank, we had about 60 attendees live this evening, and I just want to thank all of you. And for anyone watching later, we will have this recorded and saved on our website and our Facebook page. And we'll be continuing to answer questions that are put in the comments on Facebook as well. And Athletic Director Andy Mott is a great resource for additional questions, as well as your coaches. So Principal Hudson or Mr. Mott, if there's anything else you'd like to say.
No, Mr. Mott, he did a great job of covering content for tonight. And I will share that I was very excited today with the ideas of dropping down in levels and being able to provide these opportunities for our students and also for our families. So just looking forward to working those logistics out and communicating that out to families and being on those fields and courts ready to go.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for taking your time tonight just to join us and taking the information. And I'm looking forward to a great year.
All right, thank you both for your time, and thank you for everyone that watched live. That's going to be an end to this session, and we look forward to following up with more information later.